Alright, so starting the recording. Hopefully everyone can see my Game Coach app here. So, first thing I wanted to talk about is space and why we don't want to just set on top of each other. I don't think I've seen any of your current team's games on like Live Fire, King of the Hill, or Oddball or something, but I assume you guys, like if you have this hill, you've probably got guys like just bunched up. I don't know. Maybe there's a guy Vlad, or maybe there's a guy Tower or something.
For the first hill, you mean?
Yeah, so it's, and
Yeah.
let's say,
I
yeah,
would.
so it's on this hill, right?
Yeah, it's our first hill is never.
Well, any of our hills are never really organized. Well, I wouldn't say it. We definitely try to do some stuff. So for the first hill, if we spawn C,
Mm-hmm.
for first thing we'll do is get control of the hill and then play for OS. But optimally, what we'll have usually that we've talked about is somebody
Split
bridge
resources.
area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So like somebody bridge, somebody nest maybe, and
Gotcha.
then obviously one in the hill, and then even usually we'll do a guy pillars.
Yeah, so like here. So I had him here, but same kind of concept. So,
Yeah.
do we know what I'm going to say is wrong with this setup?
Do I know what you're gonna say is wrong with that setup? I mean,
Yeah. Or at least just from what we've
this
talked about before.
This setup can absolutely get destroyed if multiple people flank C flat.
Yeah, for sure, right? Because there's nobody watching. So again, live fire, like the other maps, is a 3-lane map, right? So we've got this, and this, and then obviously top mid and bottom mid kind of make 2 lanes, but it's still on top of each other, right? And so the problem number one is that there's like nobody covering either of these 2 lanes, right? So like they can come out OS side for free and get to here for free and get top tower for free, which is probably the most powerful place on this map. And then they can also, from A, they can go bottom mid and get behind your pillars guy basically for free, right? And I think, at least from this position, I would say everybody's kind of focused in this direction, which is fine, because a lot of times the team's just going to spawn A and they're going to come out here and then they're going to come out garage, right? But I think a more disciplined team, which is what I hope that we end up being, is going to split the resources, right? So when they're flooding in, instead of all coming from one direction, this guy's going to come and draw your attention this way, right? He's going to say, hey, we're coming out top A, but these other guys are going to flood this way. So some guy's going to come out here and somebody's going to appear, here at the same time, and then somebody's going to come out garage. And now our whole team is in this square, right? And we're kind of trapped. And to shoot them, we have to shoot this direction and this direction and this direction and this direction. So we have 4 different places that we have to aim, whereas they're just kind of shooting in this square. And the other part about taking up space on the map is, like, if we get shot in here, so if 4, 2, 1, or 3 get shot, where do they even go? Like, 3 can back up here. He's relatively safe, right? But where does number 1 go in this scenario? He doesn't really have an escape, right? Maybe 4 can get down bottom tower and kind of work his way back around, do the C jump or something. But the idea is, like, we don't have any escapes, but if we shoot number 7, he can just back up this way. If we shoot number 6, he can go bottom mid. If we shoot this guy, he can go this way. They can always escape from where we're at, right? They don't have any pressure on them to stand there and die, which unfortunately at low levels, they're just going to stand there and die anyways. But the idea is, if they're not ego challenging everything, they can always escape because we're not forcing them into an area. So before we even talk about like where we set up, because I don't think it's as important as just talking about where we want to control, do you know the 5 or 6 spawn points on live fire?
Yeah. Well, maybe. So there's A, mud, dummies. Let me
Yes.
see.
So,
Overshield
yep. So we'll go, there's a
and
spawn
back
point
B.
like right in here. Yep. Back B
Alright.
all the way down to nest box is a spawn point. Again, they can spawn in this kind of area. My drawing is terrible. They can spawn in dummies. They can spawn at OV. And I would actually say there's 2 spawn points in A because it gets weird.
Flatten by window.
Yeah, but you could spawn to like right here, and then you can also spawn all the way to about right here. So the time that it gets weird is if there's a guy standing like here, they can still technically spawn in garage. But if you're standing here, you're blocking both spawns. So
If you're looking at a spawn point, does that negate them spawning there?
So I have literally seen people walk to here, turn this way, and shoot a guy as they spawn
Okay.
over shield. I would say it is an influence, but it's like the smallest influence. I also saw Frosty the other day in stream literally know the guy was going to spawn mud, and so he dropped off of green and stood behind here and just blocked his line of sight and then jumped up and killed the guy as soon as he spawned.
Have you seen the clip with Collect where he does the sniping
Catalyst, yeah.
on Catalyst? He
it's-
like looks at the wall and he sees him spawn. He pokes out and he looks at the wall.
Yep.
Do you think he
It's-
was controlling that?
Yes, he knew where his teammates
Okay.
were, and he was specifically standing
line of
just far
sight.
enough out of the line of sight, and also the space that he's in to control it. Because the
Yeah.
game tries to spawn the enemies. Obviously, Capture the Flag has a little bit different rules, right? Because they can't spawn over halfway across the map. But the game tries to spawn the enemies as far away from the largest group of enemies possible. So if we have like 3 people here, it's going to spawn them in the spawn point that's farthest away from us, which is here. However, I think some maps have different weightings, because I know for certain on Livefire, A spawns are prioritized and mud spawns are prioritized. So if we have a bunch of people stacked here, they may still spawn in A. But the idea is the biggest spawn influence you can have is just simply having a person in an area. So if we have a guy in the hill, they're not going to spawn at B, right? The only way they would spawn at B is if we are really spread out, like we've got guys just all over the map, right? They may spawn closer to him. But I think more than just setting up around the hill, we want to block lines of sight, but we also want to reduce the amount of places that they have possible to spawn. So I think immediately I would put somebody top tower, and they can either be here or here. Like there's so many ways that you can take angles on top tower while also blocking line of sight. Like if you're here, they can't see you from top mid, but you could take 2 steps and now they can't see you from this way, but you can see top mid, and then you could also come to this elbow and you can see B. Like top tower, I think every hill other than the A hill, it's just really powerful because you can see all 3 lanes. There's nowhere on the map that they can come out that you can't have an influence. Because at least in my idea, I don't want us to be a team that's like, hey, this guy just spawned here, I'm going to shoot him and one of us is going to die, right? Like I'm going to shoot this guy and he's going to shoot me, and I'm top tower, so I may have a better chance of killing him, but I don't want to sit here and just shoot him and he's got me one shot, but I'm still standing here shooting him, right? Like I want to shoot him, but once I start getting weak, I can just back up. I can drop off tower, I can back up to here, I can again get here to where I'm blocking line of sight and try to do some damage elsewhere. But the idea is I don't want to fight that guy in a straight up battle. I want to weaken him and make him say, I don't want to come this way because I know there's a guy top tower. And if he keeps coming, obviously you can just peek back out and shoot him again. But the idea is if we have a guy here, we know that this lane is pretty much blocked off. They can't come this way without this guy at least being a buffer in the lane. Similarly, he can also provide some of a buffer in the middle lane. It's a little harder because he has to focus on one direction or another, and I would say if we have him here, let's erase that. We're blocking this spawn and this spawn, so now we have 2 spawns controlled. The other guy, I think Nest is still valid, just specifically because he's kind of in a pivot point to where he can shoot guys that decide to come out garage, and that's kind of his primary thing. But if people start coming up to C and this guy gets overwhelmed, he can also turn and come and help him.
Yeah.
it's not really blocking an additional spawn, but that's where number 2 comes in. This guy is the floater kind of person that I like to have in every formation, and my idea with him is if they are 4 down, he needs to be right here because he wants to block these 2 spawns.
Yeah.
And obviously he can be on this pillar, he could be here, and all he's doing is just staring at his scoreboard and waiting on them to spawn. And as soon as they spawn, he can either flank right behind them because we know the 2 places that they're most likely to spawn are here. And you can also do that with this tower guy while they're not spawning. If you get to like right here, you're going to block this and guarantee that they spawn here. And so now he can come to small window or he can run out scoreboard or whatever. And we've pinched them all just in this one spawn point. So they're as far away from the hill as possible. So this guy is under no pressure at all. And we have 2 people that are just going to be shooting them as soon as they spawn. Because again, you can curb slide here to get to sandbags. You can come out the window. Over here, you can come here. But we know exactly where they're going to be. It's not always going to be an ideal scenario, right? Like, it's very hard for us to get all 4 people down at the same time. But if they're 3 to 4 down, I think that this is where I would like us to be. Because we're taking up as much space as possible. This is not even a L, this is a U, right? We're taking up as much of the map as possible. We're giving them this tiny area that's in just a completely open field to spawn in. While we're gaining hill time and they can't do anything to come off spawn, because I'm sure you guys have seen this in matchmaking, because I have too. What do you do when you spawn here and you're just immediately getting blasted? There's not much that you could do, right? You're just getting shot to death off spawn, and you can try to wiggle. Yeah, you can try to wiggle around overshield, but there's literally nowhere you can go because you have to cross
Like
an
spawning
open
batteries,
field.
bro.
Yes,
Fucking recharge. It's
exactly.
so fucked.
You have to cross an
You're
open
seen
area.
from every single fucking cross route.
Yep. So at least for the A hill, I think this is the idea. I do think that eventually, if we know there are at least 2 up on the map, this guy is probably not floating here because the danger is we don't know where they're at, right? This guy could be an A coming behind him. They could be bottom mid or something. And so I think at that point, he probably wants to just come down to like garage, or he can also be B pillars. We just have to be careful of somebody coming bottom mid. So if he's B pillars, then this guy's probably watching. Well, actually, number 1 is probably watching his back at that point, right? He's watching pillars, which is going to cut off a sight line. This guy's kind of watching sandbags. This guy's watching over here, and then this guy's watching the garage area. So everywhere that they can approach us from, we're at least going to have a buffer, as in somebody shooting them before they can get to us, if that makes sense. Cool. So that's, I think, hill number 1. Let me see. Oh, right. Hill number 2. So this is out of order, but whatever. Hill number 2. Same thing. We want somebody top tower, pretty much for all of these hills except for the A hill.
Right.
I still think somebody nest is good too. But there's a couple ways that you can play this. There's like a really aggressive way that you can play it, and then there's a not as aggressive way to play it.
Real quick, I wanted to ask real quick. So if I think you already mentioned it actually. I'm going back to the previous hill actually. If that, like, you don't have to set it up or anything, but
Yeah.
if that guy that, you know, if we don't 4-wipe them, right, where is that guy that would normally be at A to block that spawn?
Yeah, so I think as soon as they're 3 down, this guy needs to be just hauling it to A, unless he's the one that's in the fight with the 4th guy, right? And this guy isn't always going to be the same person. Like, I can't be like, Jar, you are the A guy, right? Because
Oh yeah, I know.
because sometimes you're going to be closer to this, or you're going to be over here, or you're going to be in the hill. So we have to just understand that it can change. But at
Yeah,
this
you have to
point,
understand.
if they're 2 or 3, like we have numbers, or even if the map is even, but we have control, so we're in the places that we want to be, this guy is kind of an information gatherer. So you're not trying to take a direct fight, but you're trying to find out which direction they're coming from, right? So you can start to lurk into A to see, okay, are they coming through garage? If they're not coming through garage, you can back up. You can check down here. You can even go here, because you're not influencing anything on the map if they're already spawned, right? Because they're already on the map. The other thing, though, too, that I want to point out, because I didn't mention it at all, once this hill starts to get close to being capped, we're at like 90%, then I think your formation actually makes sense to like condense people down. Because basically, we want to just throw bodies in the hill to make sure that we can capture the hill, right? So even if this guy dies, we need all the guns here because all of the action's going to be here. Because once the hill's starting to get close to being captured, everybody's going to want to be in this area, right? And I guess we can do the opposite of that too. Like, if the other team gets completely set up like this and we all just spawn here, I don't necessarily know what our best option is. But if we're a couple alive, I still think the weakness of this is to get to be pillars, honestly. But the thing is, we want to arrive in different places at the same time. Like, unfortunately, if they're set up like this, two of us are probably dead. So we're probably going to spawn here, and your best bet is honestly to just try to hide back here and live long enough. Maybe shoot this guy back and somehow slide out and hide bottom cuts,
Yeah.
then get bottom mid or something, right?
Multiple people are shooting at either the guy on sandbags or the guy on tower.
Yes.
They're gonna have to back down.
Yep.
And then you
So
figure it out.
these people spawn, we've got to pick a direction and focus that person. It's probably easier to approach this way just because this guy has such a height advantage and he's got so many places that he can dip and dive around, right? This, not so much. I mean, he can back up into A, but once he's into A, like, we're completely free to go wherever we want because he has no idea which direction we're coming from, right? Because of the fog of war thing. He can't see us because there's no line of sight. So he knew you were here, but he has no idea which path you're going to get to him after that, right? There's so many different angles that you can take. So I would suggest us trying to break this guy. We try to get 4 up. It's not always going to work out that way because this hill may be close to being done. So this guy's got to come in and get some damage, get them saying, hey, they're coming up, be pillars. But as soon as he gets shot at, he's got to back up. And if I was this guy and I was backing up, you might want to try to get out here and try to deal with the guy top tower because I think you may be able to catch timing on him, come up cuts or something to where he's not looking in your direction, right? He's looking over here. And if you can get to here, you may be able to get tower, or you might be able to come this way, just depending on if he's looking at you. The other option is to just back up and wait on your shields to come back and then come back and peek again. And then this guy, again, is trying to be annoying in here or wherever he's at. Like, the idea is we don't want them to be able to just look in one direction, which is what we did on the last hill of this, which is going to be fun because we were all like all right here and it was just a firing squad, right? And we all died.
Yeah.
We want
I
to
remember.
approach different angles. Cool. So if we go to hill number 2, again, I think top tower is just going to be really powerful because this guy can lock down this entire lane. Like, there's no way they can approach from here other than coming up cuts that he's not going to be able to directly impact them. Like, they just can't come in this direction at all. They can't even come out this way, right? Because he's going to be able to see everything they can do. The only way they can approach from this direction is to come this way. And even still, every time you come up to cuts, I'm pretty sure you're like, this is a terrible way to approach this, right? Because you get to here, and then he's here, and then obviously somebody's in the hill, right? Because we're capping this hill. And this guy should probably be around this area to where he's blocking line of sight with this box, but then he can also see people approaching from cuts. Raise that. I still like a guy in Nest, but I was going to talk about that. And then again, I think this 4th guy, which is number 2 right now, is always just going to be kind of a floater because this lane is blocked by number 3. This lane is blocked by number 4. So the only lane they really have to come through is the top mid lane, and it's just basically impossible. So this guy can either be somewhere that he could see top mid, or more preferably, he's the spawn blocker, because right now we're also kind of condensed, right? So if he's just in this kind of area, which I think we probably do some too, where we've just got 3 people at sea, the other team has, like, they could spawn. Of course, I've got an eraser on. Oh, all right. So they can realistically spawn in any of these areas. And if they are patient, then they can, again, approach in different angles. Somebody can come this way, somebody can come bottom mid, somebody can try to come bottom mid and maybe get out pillars and get behind tower. And I think that's like the, if you can get to here, this setup is broken completely. And it doesn't even really matter where we're at, right? It's just the idea that they're behind you now, so you can either get a back smack or they're shooting you, especially if your team's all pushing at the same time. But that's why this guy's got to be mindful of that, or again, if you want to move this guy out to like the box or whatever. But I like two things. We can push this guy all the way up to green because he can't be seen as he's coming out here. So this has probably happened to you because it's happened to me before, but a guy comes out garage and he runs straight through this field, or he comes here. He's never going to check to see if this guy's standing here.
No, they definitely don't. I had that happen the other night where they
Yep.
came from one. One came from sandbags, one came from B door, and I was patient. I wait for the
Yes.
first guy to go, then the second guy to go,
Oh, it's
and I just
perfect.
followed them.
Because now you've got
And I
two
started lighting 'em
guys,
up.
and you've got your back to the, or they've got your back to you. Because this
Exactly.
right here is the best kill in Halo, right? When you've got somebody's back turned to you. And then also, just in general, if this guy's standing here, we're blocking this spawn too, so they can't spawn here. So they can't spawn tower, and they can't spawn here. So now we've limited it to this. Honestly, if we have a guy here and a guy here, we're also following that largest group of enemies. So we're blocking this as well. So they're always going to spawn A in this case. And because of that, we can either lean heavy into that. We can get this guy way up the map. Maybe he does the same kind of thing that the B guy's doing as bait here. The only trick is sometimes they'll approach wide, but a lot of times they're just going to run here. And again, he's blocking line of sight because he's standing next to this column. They can't see him. He could also come bottom mid and just wait on them to spawn, and then either come this direction or come into A that way and get behind them. So basically, we're just flipping the map on them, right? So they're all spawning here, and we want to give them a second to start going in whatever direction they're going to go out, and then you come in, and now you are behind whatever path that they're taking, right? So I would like for, again, whatever formations that we set up, to have at least one person who's kind of free to just fill in space. So whether that's listening, hey, there's three in brutes, so you have to find a way to get behind those guys in brutes and put shots in. Hey, there's a bunch coming out this way, or whatever. This guy needs to be a listener who's just open to pivoting around the map. So maybe somewhere like B pillars is a good place to start, and then he can start to transition as they start spawning. Because we don't want him all the way up here, because then he'll block A, and I don't really know where they're going to spawn. Probably here, which maybe is fine.
I think having someone just.
Yeah.
I think no one should ever go A.
Yeah, just
I
say
think
we
if
want
we
them
go-
to spawn
I
as
like
far
the OV
away.
play and the box play.
Yep. So he's either here hiding, right, and then this guy's hiding, or he can be, again, just somewhere where he can
You
react.
can rotate to each side. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we got pressure coming this way, he comes this way. If we got pressure coming this way, he comes this way. And whether that's to get behind them or to just approach them directly, the idea is he's filling in space.
It's very
where-
important then to call out like how many are coming on one side, so that way he
Yes.
knows which way is more important to go to.
Yep, this is the other stuff that we've got to get good at, right? Is identifying, like we were talking about the other night, like, hey, I've got your cross, you watch my cross, that kind of thing. But we also have to identify, like, hey, you're tower guy, your job is to watch this direction, right? I'm watching this brute direction, so you need to watch my cuts, whatever, right? So now this guy's staring at cuts. Hey, number 4, whoever that is, get all the way out to green and chill back green, because you don't even have to be here. You can be all the way back green. You could also be on the spikes, but I think this is probably about the best spot to be for this one.
Yeah, I
And-
like this setup right here.
The other idea is too, you just killed these guys twice. Next time they're going to look for you, right? So instead of being here, now you're here, or now you're here, or maybe now you're here, right? Like,
Yeah,
don't
you
always
change
stand
it
in
up.
the same spot. You have this. It's not
What
a
if-
static
I have a
setup.
question.
You've got this kind
What
of
what
space.
Okay, so say you kill the two that are rushing towards B with the help of the guy at box.
Yep.
now once those two die, the other two, where do you think the other two will be? Because I have to say more after we try and figure out their positioning, right?
Yeah, it's
Like
tricky, right? Because
if they're gonna go up the middle, whoever's down here at B, I think should rotate the box, and the guy who's at box should start rotating towards brutes if they're in middle.
yeah, or maybe get all the way to here or something, right? Like
Yeah,
to
try to rotate to OV, because then those two are gonna either come back the other way to go towards the OV to cuts, or they're gonna try and go through B again, searching for the one guy that was hiding back there.
Yep. So that, and I think that's fine because if they're a disciplined team, honestly, as soon as two people die, unless the heal's just literally about to end or they know there's a one-shot call out or something, they should just be hiding. But the people that we're going to play in HRL are not going to be disciplined, right? So they're probably just going to keep coming. So yeah, I like the idea of taking up as much space as possible. It also gives us the option to potentially stagger them, right? Because if these guys are stupid and they come out here and we kill them, now these two guys are spawning as those two guys are dying, and then there's just this 10 seconds to where they're never alive at the same time. And if these guys are like, oh, they just died, we got to go make something happen, right? And then they die. Now these two guys spawn, and then they have to deal with the same kind of thing.
I think
So I've
we
got-
also gotta remember with every setup how Ovi's gonna affect it.
Yes, yeah, so that's the other thing. And that's why Halo static setups, it's what makes Halo kind of dynamic, is that you can't just set in the same spot the entire match. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever watched a CSGO match, but they literally don't move their cursor the entire match. They just stand in the same,
Boring.
spot. But power-ups and, power weapons and things obviously change stuff. So I think the easiest thing to do when Ovi's coming up, with the exception of this heal, because you want a guy here, is to just get out of green. We don't want anyone in green, so that we know they're spawning as far away from OV as possible, right? I think we could talk specifically about OV on the OV heal, because there's things that we can do there. But yeah, whenever we're close to that timer, I think it's kind of everybody but the heal guy kind of abandons it and goes and fights for OV. And if we've got a big lead, honestly, we could all abandon the heal and just go fight for OV, right? Because the time, say we got this hill and we got this hill and the hill's in A. If we're up 2-0, time is also on our side, right? Because they have to cap 2 hills, but also not have the time run out on them. So, all right, which hill is next? It's number 5 for some reason. Okay. So what I really like to do in this hill, again, we're going to do the space thing where we spread people out. But generally we want them to spawn all the way back here, right? Like we want them to be either as far away from the hill as possible or on one side of the map. I think what we don't want them to do is to spawn here. But there's something really fun that you could do that I might have done in this match, because I do it all the time in matchmaking, is let's say you've got a battle actually going on and you died and your teammates are still in a fight and maybe 2 of them are dead, but these 2 guys are already here and you spawn here. What do you do if you spawn here and they're 2 dead and you've got teammates, whether we're 2 dead or just 1 dead? Well, I guess we could also all be 4 up. Like, what is your game plan when you spawn here?
When you spawn at B?
Yes.
Where's the other 2 enemies at?
So, well, if you spawn away from your team, that means the enemies are on your team, right? So they're approaching your guys. So
I think the best option there would be to camp around B and let your team spawn up on you.
yeah, so there's 2 ways to play this, right?
I would push sandbags.
Yeah, and I think that's what
Honestly,
happens
that's just what I would do.
most of the
personally.
time.
I would change it if I need to now.
Is to push sandbags is what most people do, I would say, in the scenario. But what I've started to do is go this way. And the reason I go this way is because guess where they're going to spawn if I spawn here? They're going to spawn right here. And so they're going to start coming this way because the hill's an A. And then I'm immediately going to be behind them getting shots in their back. And now, where can they go? Because if they come
spawn
back
mud sometimes too, don't they?
Yeah, so that's the other trick.
Because I've seen that before.
They're not going to spawn mud if you spawn here, assuming that your team's not just all dead. So if you're all dead, they may spawn mud. But specifically, if you spawn right here, they're not going to spawn mud. If you spawn back here, they're probably going to spawn mud.
Okay.
So the closer you get to A, the more likely they are to spawn mud. But if you spawn here, they're probably spawning in this area, unless you have a teammate that's at tower or something, right? Because if he's at tower, then yeah, who knows. But for this hill specifically, if I'm here, and basically every time I spawn here now, if I check my scoreboard and they're not 4 up, I'm immediately running this way. And you could either do that from, going this way under pillars, or you can come and hit like a curve slide and get over here, because they're going to spawn here and they're immediately going to run forward. They almost never come back this way because the hill is in A and they're just trying to get to A. And so if you can get to here and get a couple shots in their back, and your team won this fight, if they push forward, your team's already here. If they come back, then again, you're here. Obviously, you don't want to fight 2 guys at the same time, but the idea is that herding cattle kind of thing that I was talking about, to where we're blocking them into this area. Now our team's on both sides of them, so we can shoot them from this way and we can shoot them from this way. They don't have really
Why won't
any
they spawn
escape
B?
route. They will, but they're not going to spawn
Okay.
B if I just spawn B, right? This is specifically for when
Okay.
I just spawn B.
Got it.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so if I just spawn B, no one's going to spawn here, right? Because they're already getting set to spawn in this area. But the other thing is, if I get here and they still haven't spawned, then yeah, they'll spawn B, because I am now blocking this spawn instead of that spawn, right?
So let's just say we're down 2, and there's 2 left. And we're down 2. You just spawned. One guy on our team is an A. You just spawned B.
hmm
What if all 4 of them are
If they're all 4
are
alive
like
already.
if they're all 4 alive? Where do you go if all 4 are alive as soon as you spawn there? Do you still take your same route, or do you do something else, or do you sacrifice him to get a better spawn for the other 2?
Yeah, so I think if they're all 4 up and we're all 4 up, then I'm doing what you're talking about, and I'm just going straight to sandbags to get to my team, right? Because
Okay.
if I spawn away from my team and none of them are dead, that means there's a team fight going on in this area, right? Or even if just one of them is dead, which I guess if this could also go both ways, because if one of them's dead and you can get to here and you can isolate him and kill him for free, then that's one guy off the map that you're not worried about, right? And then this is an even fight, and we hope that we can win an even fight. But if I spawn here and they're all 4 up and my team is still alive, yeah, I'm just coming back to help them.
What if there's only one left, like I said there? Are you
Yeah,
gonna
if
choose
it's
to
just
go
this
somewhere
guy
else? Yeah.
and
What
they're
happens
4 alive, I'm probably not even moving. I'm just going to hide here and wait on my
Okay,
team.
so you're gonna stay B.
Yeah, because I want my team to spawn here. If they've already got A, right, I want us to spawn here. Because I think from here, we can come this way. We can also go this way. And we can come, through the tunnel. There's,
Because
from
as soon as
B,
they ice his ass, I feel like they're gonna rotate hard towards B and sandbags.
possibly. Yeah, and that's why I said I'm not even showing myself. I'm literally going to hide behind this fin to where they have to come all the way around here to see me, or all the way here. Because they may come to B. They might start to set up, and set up their own
Why not
cross.
go C though? I just wanna know why not go C then?
I think and we could. I'm
I'm
just
just saying
worried
if the
that
one guy's alive and that guy's gonna get fucked,
yeah, because he's going to
would
die
you go
regardless.
C for a safer setup?
Possibly, but it
Because the
depends.
threat isn't as close as it would be from B to A?
Yep. So the reason that at least me, which if you did this, I would not say a word. This is completely fine too, right?
Cause that's what I would do, unfortunately. I would, like,
Yeah,
I'm just telling
it's
you where
not
my mindset
it's
is,
not
right? So, like,
unfortunate. It's
that's what I would
completely
do.
it's completely reasonable, right? Like,
Okay.
that is fine. The thing that I'm thinking, if I spawn away from my teammate and they're 4 alive and he's the only guy alive, is he's going to die in like 1 second, right? Because they're 4 alive, and then they're going to come out the sandbags. And if I'm trying to get here, they might see me right on my way. is the only thing that I'm thinking. Is I don't want to be seen trying to get to C, because now they know where I'm at, and then
Yeah.
so I'm just hiding for a second. Maybe I even go in the middle B and just hide. But the idea is hopefully they are a team that's also kind of like, hey, we should set up in A. Let's put every single person side to side in A, right? And if they do that, then our team's going to squad spawn if you're not getting shot at and they're not in this area. So even if they're here, if you haven't taken any damage, you can get squad spawn, so your team will just spawn with you. But once they cross like this threshold, then that kind of goes out the window, and your team's probably going to spawn here, right, away from you. But even still, you can work with this, right? Because I could dip and dive around here and live long enough for these guys to spawn and come and kill this guy if he's trying to chase me down or whatever. So back to like us. Hopefully that makes sense. Does that make any sense at all? At least this is how my brain
I get
works.
that.
Yep. So if we go to like our actual setup in A, obviously someone has to be in the hill. If you're in the hill, you might as well be watching top mid, because there's not really anything else that you can see from the hill, right? So you're just waiting on somebody to come this way or this way. I think having someone over in the window isn't the worst thing, because they can see the field. But this guy could also, again, same thing on the C hill. He can come all the way up here and kind of hide. He could also come here and kind of hide. It gets a little more dangerous when you come here, because there's always the what if somebody comes this way, right? So as the hill gets closer, I think being in the window, you can see them as they're trying to approach from this way. You can also see them if they come out here, but the idea is this guy is in a pretty safe spot too. He can shoot and always back up. Like as soon as he starts taking damage, he just backs up and lives. Again, if they come top mid, this guy's watching them. And then I know we talked about the whole baiting. Jeez, I really got to get used to the controls in this thing. But talked about the whole baiting thing of if I spawn B, well, how about if they're 4 down or 3 down, let's go on and get out to B and then do the ratting kind of thing. And this guy can be garage or he can be sandbags. It doesn't matter. Again, this guy's kind of the free flower, right? I want him to be able to, hey, they're all coming brutes. And his immediate idea is, okay, if they're all coming brutes, I'm going to get behind them, or I'm going to come out this way, right? Like he's floating to fill in space. This guy is solo blocking this lane. So the same thing we talked about before. These guys spawn mud. They're just going to run straight this way. They're not going to come and look for this guy here. So you get free shots in the back. And then next time they're like, hey, we're looking for that guy. So now you're over here or you're over here. You just take different spots to where you don't think they're immediately going to be looking, right? So this guy's kind of a rat. This guy's a listener / floater. This guy's obviously getting hill time, but he's also hard watching top mid. This guy's hard watching the brute lane. And again, he can reposition a little bit. There's also a spot right here you can stand where they can't see you too. I think here is not as effective because they're going to be all the way to here by the time that you see them, but there's a couple different spots this guy can stand to be outside of his lane where the guys approaching aren't going to see him directly. Cool. And again, hopefully you two and Mystery Teammate 4 that we haven't named yet can come up with some ideas for breaking setups, because the biggest thing for me is just approaching from different angles and having that one person who comes early, right? So we want somebody to show themselves early to let the other team say, okay, they're coming from top mid, because as soon as they do that, a lot of undisciplined teams are going to be like, oh, they're coming from top mid, right? They're all going to start to look that way. And if they all start looking that way, then we can send the actual team in other directions, right? So they're all looking this way. Okay, so we just came bottom mid and went in here. We came bottom mid. I think bottom mid, at least on live fire, is like the biggest pivot point on this map, and no one really uses it because from here and from here, you can go out this way. You can come bottom A. You can come this way and then jump up sandbags. Same thing here. You can go brutes, or you can go this way, and obviously from this way you can get back tower. Like there's just so many different paths you can go through from bottom mid. You can come
Yeah, that's a lot.
around and go to cuts, and they're almost never watching bottom mid, right? So I think, at least if it was me and I was trying to break this setup, I would either have somebody try to get to garage, because if we can get to garage, breaking this is really easy. So let's say the other team is not very optimal with their setup and they've got guys, again, maybe they got a guy here. They got two guys kind of watching the hill, or maybe somebody's here. If we can get in garage and just get a shot off, and again, you don't even have to fight anybody. You're just drawing their attention so that these guys are now looking in this direction, right? And maybe this guy is going back bottom mid and he's trying to get back in here. Maybe this guy turns. From that point, the strong side of our setup can either triple push top mid, or they can triple push this way, or they can go bottom mid and come in this way. There's like so many different ways they can go. We can also split them up, right? Somebody goes this way, somebody goes this way, somebody comes top mid while they're looking this way, and now we're getting shots in people's sides instead of shooting them head on. Wow, this is taking a lot of time. All right.
One
I mean,
map at
from
a
what
time.
I'm understanding, there's going to be a lot of variability to these setups. I think.
Yes, yeah. So the idea is we can't get like so down in the weeds that we're like, okay, why were you not sitting in window, right? Because it's not the idea of setting in window. It's the idea of controlling this lane, right? Like you want to make sure no one can come through this path for free. Similarly, whoever's over here, whether he's on this box or back green or in the nest or wherever, his whole job is to make sure that no one comes this way without us knowing it, right? And then the same thing here, whoever's sitting in the hill. We just have to realize, and this applies to almost every map except for Solitude and Recharge, because they're the only non-3-lane maps, or at least traditional 3-lane maps on the game, is there's 3 different paths that they're probably going to come from. How can we make it as easy as possible to, eliminate approach options from those paths? So the worst thing that we could do is take a one-on-one fight and just, hey, there's guys coming this way. I'm going to jump out here and fight them or whatever, right? Or same thing, like instead of me ratting over here, if I'm standing literally front green as they're spawning mud, or even if I'm standing in garage but just in the middle of like big door, like I don't want to take this fight because I think you guys are really excellent shooters. I am not. So I'm going to lose this fight regardless. But eventually this guy is not, Timmy123 who's playing matchmaking. This guy is Lucid now or something, right? He's going to outshoot us. And if we can make it to where he's not fighting us one-on-one or head up, like I can't kill Lucid like this, but I can certainly kill Lucid if I'm here and he's here. Well, actually, on Aquarius once, he was one shot and jumped out and just absolutely obliterated me full shields. But the idea is I've got a much better chance of shooting him, like this than I do taking 10 paces and, seeing who draws first or whatever.
Yeah, I get that.
Cool. Next heal. I have no... Okay, it's Overshield Hill, right?
Yeah.
That's number 4. I think what's cool about the Overshield Hill, and kind of the B Hill too, is the B Hill we can always force them to spawn in this area. Overshield we can always force them to spawn back green. And to do that, we get back to our favorite spot on the map, which is Top Tower. Top Tower guy is, at least in this case, I think he can stand here for the most part and just try to seed the spawners and get a couple shots in them, maybe encourage them to come this direction. Obviously, you're going to have a guy in the hill. It doesn't really matter. He's just, again, trying to put something between him and one direction, right? So if he's looking this way, he's on this side of the cylinder. If he's looking this way, he's on this side, so that this is blocking line of sight in case someone approaches a way that he's not looking. Other guy here can actually be either on sandbags or like back in A, so he can either be like here, because most of the time they're not going to run in here. Like it seems like, at least when I play matchmaking, everybody when they spawn here, they do one of two things. Well, I guess three things. They either come straight this way, and obviously this can branch off here, or they run straight through B pillars, and it's not actually the thing they do. B pillars, they come this way, or they just come straight sandbags and jump off and suicide into the hill. But I guess occasionally, especially if they're a smarter player, they might come into A. But if this guy is standing specifically on this box, he's doing two things. He's blocking all of the A spawns, so they're not going to spawn in A, and he's also shielding his line of sight here, so playing outside of his lane to where they can't see him immediately if they come in this way. So they might walk right past him, or if you hear them coming, you can start to shoot and then just back up and get closer to your team. Maybe come here and come around. But just being in this setup here with just 3 players, we've already blocked. Again, like they're not going to spawn here, they're not going to spawn here, they're not going to spawn here, and they're not going to spawn anywhere in A. So they're forced, again, just to this tiny area. And we still got the free guy who's open to either, hey, I'm at sandbags, I'm going to start shooting them as soon as they spawn. Hey, once they come up, I'm going to come to B pillars, start shooting them. He can respond and react. So I don't know where he should start this play. Maybe he starts here, maybe he's here. But the idea is, number 2 is either going to say, hey, they're coming this way, towards C, or number 3 is going to say, hey, they're coming into garage or whatever. So maybe he should start here because he'll be able to see it easier as they're approaching from that direction. But he's the reactor. He's got the ability to kind of freely move around and just listen to everybody else.
So he's going to be spending his time in the bottom mid, basically, or bottom that tunnel area, right?
That's a great place to be too. Actually, that's even better than top mid, right? Because he can.
Oh wait, that was top mid. Oh.
Yeah, I said he could. So if he's on sandbags, like as soon as they spawn, he's just shooting them and they hate their life, right? But if he's bottom mid, he can do the same thing. He can come out B pillars, and then he's in the pivot point that we were talking about, right? He's got so many different directions that he can go through just by being in this tunnel. I would like to get shots on them like as soon as they spawn, though. So maybe he's standing sandbags once they spawn, right, and shooting them already. But as soon as they start shooting back, he just backs up and then goes bottom mid and then kind of reacts to where they're going.
You could even go top mid and drop down through the top. Or he might be, this is really thinking it out there, but like he could hide in that little cuddy for a second and then that A guy, once he starts fighting them, he could come back out. But I don't know, that's thinking a little too much.
It's all good ideas, because the whole point is I want that guy to be free to play however you guys play, right? So Nick's a big flanker. Nick can get behind them, right? Let them come up the map a little bit and get behind them and just start shooting at the back. Jar's kind of a ratty guy, so maybe he is crouching in the corner here. Maybe he's hiding in this tunnel waiting on them to come in garage. There's like so many different places that he can play that I want this guy to be open to do it. But the other good thing about this too, that I think I talked about a little bit earlier, but it's just the idea that they have no escape. Like, there's nowhere for them to back up to. The only space they control is this. So since they only control that little bit of space, their only option to back up is to just huddle back here and cry together, right? Like they don't have anywhere they can go. But if this guy starts getting shot at, he can just back up. If this guy starts getting shot at, he can back up, right? If they get into garage and number 3 gets shot at, he can always just come down this way. Like, we know that these areas of the map are safe because we have teammates who are blocking the spawns there, and they can't get out of their little tiny area unless they go a direction that we can call out, right? Because somebody's going to be looking at it. Um, I'm sure you guys have heard of halo timing, but halo timing is when this guy gets shot back and then the other guy gets through as he's shot back, like he backed up for a second, or like he's checking multiple angles, so he's looking this way for a few seconds and he looks this way, and the guy gets through as he's like changing his position, or he's backed up to just get his shields back. That's going to happen, but that's specifically going to happen when we start playing better teams. Like, I think that for the first parts of this is going to really be hard for people to deal with.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, last heal, and then we might actually watch this game. We'll see. We might have to split that to another night too, because this is a lot. But hopefully this is helpful.
I think so, yeah.
So again, top mid hill, we want somebody in the hill, right? There's not really much that they can do here. They're either, getting to an edge and looking this way, and maybe they can see like the C jump, but there's really nothing that they can see. Maybe they can stand here and they can see people in A if we give them A. The whole idea, though, is we want someone top tower so that they have lines of sight on any of the 3 approach angles, and then these 2 people, their job is to decide where the other team spawns. So if they're all down and I'm one of these 2 guys, I'm either flooding to get into A, to block A, and maybe this guy's kind of hanging out here, and then we know they're spawning B, or I'm flooding to get to B, and again, maybe this guy's hanging out here, so that we know that they're spawning A. So the idea is just take up as much space as possible and limit them to one of the 2 spawn points that we want them to spawn in. So we either want them to spawn A or we want them to spawn B. I think the idea just depends on where we're closer to when they start going 3 or 4 down. And then if I'm this guy and I know they're spawning B, because I'm here, I can just come to sandbags and start shooting them in the back as they start to either come this way or they go to nest. Like, their options are pretty limited at that point. Whew. And if we say, hey, and this is what we've got to get good at calling out, like, hey, they're 3 dead, I'm forcing them to spawn B. So this guy knows not to go to B, right? He's just going to stand in this kind of area or something so that he can shoot B, but he's not blocking B, or he can be down here. The idea is these 2 guys are mainly open, but they are forming our L shape, if you will. This guy's either really overextended or this guy is either really overextended, but we can't have them both overextended. So we have to coordinate between either this guy's pushed up into A and then he comes here as they start spawning, or this guy's pushed up into B and this guy's either back here or he's somewhere trying to block an approach angle that they're taking, right?
I almost like the A setup better, like 2 guys at C and then 1 at A. I almost like that one better. I don't know what you guys...
I think I like it better too, and the reason is just simply if this guy's like right here as they're spawning, now he can shoot them as soon as they spawn. This guy can also shoot them. This guy can turn around and shoot them. Like, they're getting a whole lot more pressure than if we give them A, because A is kind of a fortress. Like, there may not be much you can do in A, but you can definitely all 4 spawn. And what we don't want them to do is have them all 4 alive at the same time, right? We want them to be rushing to get, oh, I just spawned, let me get out here and do something. Or, oh, I just spawned, let me go take a fight. Because that's what we're going to run into a lot, is guys are just running out trying to take fights. But from A, they can all 4 spawn. And so we're blocking B. And again, this guy's here, but back to fog of war, where are they going, right? We don't know where they're going. They may all go tunnel. One guy might jump in window and start shooting this way, or he might come out this way. But we don't know where they're coming from. But if they're all here, they don't really have an option, right? Because there's nowhere that they can go that isn't through an open area. If they go this way, we can see them. If they go this way, we can see them. Like, they don't have an option to get out. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think this is better either way. So.
Yeah, that's I think it's easy. It's easier. It's like the easiest way for them to break it too is to go to that A
Yeah.
guy. Like you said, it's still gonna be hard since they're gonna get shot from everywhere. Not everywhere, but two different places.
Yeah,
Even,
and I mean,
either the A guy can escape, but even if that A guy collapses, we still have control of that whole side of the map, really.
yeah, because if you think about this, if they all four spawn up, so they're at least smart enough to all just sit back here until they spawn. What are they going to do? If they come out this way, they're getting shot by both of these guys, so they're at least half shields by the time that they get here. And then what are they going to do from here? Because there's a guy here and there's a guy here. So they're going to die. If they,
yeah, that's a great setup right there.
If they, you know, go this way, same thing. This guy's shooting them in the back. And they're approaching two people at the same time. So yeah, I think this is better. The only thing I'm concerned about is if while they're spawning, I think this guy's got to be like over here just to make sure they don't spawn in these two areas. Because if he's all the way up here, it's very possible that they might split and two people spawn at OV and two people spawn B.
Yeah.
But if he's here while they're spawning, then he can, get up here pretty quickly. Or he can go from here and get up to sandbags, and then we've got two people here, right? And maybe this guy comes to garage. Like, we're still constricting them to a smaller area that way. Cool. Okay, that is all I've got for King of the Hill live fire. Do either of you two have anything else you want to add?
For that last hill, we'll also have a better chance of getting Ovi.
Yes, exactly. So that's the other really good point that you're making. If we allow them to spawn at A, they can also huddle around the OV, right? But if this guy is blocking OV, then we get OV for free. And they're as far away as possible from OV with not really any open areas to come out of. So yeah, I think just ignore the other part about spawning them in A. I think this is a better setup either way. And then this guy, again, he's, I guess, the space filler, but he also has to be wary of blocking these spawns, at least until they spawn. And maybe setting right here will do that, and then he can just run up and start shooting them.
I like that.
Cool. All right, I'm going to stop this recording now.